They bulldozed through my cornfield at 3 a.m., thinking darkness would hide their crime. The diesel stench, the screaming metal crushing 4 generations of corn, that's what woke me. By sunrise, a 500-foot illegal runway split my farm like an ugly scar. When that first Cessna landed at dawn, its prop wash shredding what remained of my wife Margaret's memorial butterfly garden, I didn't call 911. I called a number that made the Pentagon nervous. The Ridgemont Estates HOA thought they were stealing from a simple weekend farmer. They never Googled Garrett Thorne, Deputy Director. Fatal mistake. What would you do if an HOA literally stole your land overnight? Comment your state below. Congress wants these stories next month, and if you're watching from your own HOA nightmare, stay tuned. Because when a corrupt HOA president discovers the farmer she's bulldozing can ground every plane from Seattle to San Diego with one signature, that's when things get beautiful. My name's Garrett Thorne, and if you'd told me 6 months ago that I'd use federal aviation law to destroy an entire HOA, I'd have laughed while feeding my chickens. See, everyone in Bakersfield knows me as the weekend farmer who inherited 180 acres of California gold. Not the shiny kind, but the kind that grows in neat rows and feeds people. What they don't know is that my Monday through Friday remote consulting job involves a secured laptop connected to FAA mainframe, 3 encrypted phones, and enough security clearance to make TSA agents nervous. Let's just say when Air Force One needs to land somewhere unexpected, I'm one of 5 people who gets the call. But that's the boring job. The farm, that's my life. My grandfather bought this land in 1947 with his GI Bill money after killing Nazis. My father turned it into California's premier heirloom corn operation, the kind where chefs from San Francisco pre-order our harvest a year in advance. When Margaret, my wife of 28 years, lost her battle with pancreatic cancer 18 months ago, the farm saved me from drowning in grief. The smell of diesel and fresh-turned earth became my morning prayer. The red-tailed hawks circling overhead, my therapists. 6 local veterans work the fields with me, guys who understand that sometimes the best conversation is silence and hard work. My daughters visit monthly, Sarah from UCSF Medical School, Emily from her special needs teaching job in Portland. They come for Margaret's butterfly garden, where monarchs dance over the milkweed she planted during her last good summer. Then Vivian Blackwood slithered into our county. Picture every HOA president who ever lived. Distill their worst qualities into concentrated evil. Dress it in Lululemon and give it a pharmaceutical sales background. That's Vivian! She and her developer husband Rex bought into Ridgemont Estates, a tumor of McMansions that metastasized where the Henderson dairy farm used to be. Within 6 months, she ruled that HOA like Stalin ruled Russia, only with more surveillance cameras. Her greatest hits? Fined an 82-year-old widow $500 for grass that was 0.25 inches too tall. She measured it herself on her knees with a ruler. Sued the Martinez family for their son's wheelchair ramp because it wasn't architecturally approved. Their son lost both legs in Kandahar. She actually forced them to tear it down and rebuild it in a compliant color. But her masterpiece? She had a 9-year-old's lemonade stand shut down for operating a business without HOA commercial permits. 3 months ago, she decided I was next. The first shot came via a process server at 5 a.m. She knew I'd be awake. Agricultural operations creating unacceptable noise pollution affecting property values. My crime? Running tractors on a farm. You know that thing farms have done since 1892. Your little hobby is over, she announced, standing at my gate in $400 heels that I made sure sank deep into the mud from my accidentally relocated sprinkler. The metallic taste of rage filled my mouth. Same taste from the day Margaret got her diagnosis. This farm's been here since 1947, I said quietly. Right to Farm Act protects. My acoustic consultant says otherwise. She waved a report showing my John Deere somehow produced 140 decibels, louder than a shotgun blast, while running 500 yards away. Cease operations before 8 a.m. or face $1,000 daily fines. Then she smiled, the kind that makes you understand why guillotines were invented. Of course, Rex could make this all go away. He's willing to pay $3.2 million for your little cornfield. Cash. Not for sale. Everything's for sale. Mr. Thorne, you just don't know it yet. As her Tesla crunched away on my gravel drive, my foreman Tommy, 3 tours in Iraq, 2 Purple Hearts, spat tobacco juice. Boss, that woman's planning something bigger than noise complaints. He had no idea. Neither did I. Not until I saw the county permit application that would trigger the biggest federal aviation case in California history. 2 weeks later, Vivian pulled her dirtiest trick yet. She called an emergency HOA meeting at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, when normal people work, and only notified her inner circle. 7 wine-drunk housewives voted on the Community Soundscape Protection Act. The new rule? No equipment over 65 decibels before 8 a.m. A toilet flushing hits 75. They'd literally outlawed morning coffee grinding, let alone farming. By 4:45 a.m. the next day, 2 security guards were parked at my gate. Brad and Tyler both peaked in high school, both wearing tactical vests like they were invading Baghdad instead of monitoring corn. They had $3,000 professional decibel meters and shit-eating grins. When my disabled veteran employee, Marcus, started his medically prescribed physical therapy routine at 5 a.m., the wheelchair lift on his truck hit 67 decibels, Brad actually celebrated. Violation! He wrote the citation like he'd just caught bin Laden. That's $1,000, and tell the cripple to keep it down. I saw Marcus's jaw clench. Purple Heart recipient, 2 tours. Lost his leg saving 3 guys. Being called cripple by a mall cop. Write your ticket, I said calmly. I'll be back. 3 hours later, I returned with a document that made Vivian's BMW driving lawyer literally say, "Oh, fuck," out loud. It was a 1946 agricultural easement, older than the HOA, older than the county itself practically. Legal nugget incoming. Easements are the nuclear weapons of property law. They survive everything, sales, development, even HOA formation. This one granted perpetual rights for all agricultural operations, machinery, and livestock, operative at any hour necessary for proper farm function. Translation: their rules had as much authority over my farm as a Chihuahua has over a freight train. I didn't just send a cease and desist. I erected a billboard. 30 feet tall, LED spotlights, visible from Vivian's bedroom. Thorne Farm, legally protected since 1946. Your HOA rules are toilet paper here. The smell of panic was beautiful. Rex Blackwood appeared that evening, reeking of scotch and desperation, sweat staining his $200 golf shirt. $3.2 million, he slurred. Cash tonight, just take it and disappear. I hit record on my phone, making sure he saw it. That sounds like a bribe, Rex. Keep talking. His face went from red to white faster than a traffic light. We have other ways to handle this. I'm counting on it, I said. He stumbled back to his Range Rover, muttering about connections and nuclear options. Nuclear options? Brother, you have no idea who you're threatening. 3 days later, Vivian attacked my water rights. Ironic, considering the HOA had just unveiled a 50,000-gallon fountain featuring a bronze statue of Vivian herself. The plaque read, "Visionary Leader." I'm not making this up. Her weapon? Dr. Preston Fitzgerald, a hydrologist whose LinkedIn showed 6 different careers in 5 years. His report claimed my irrigation was causing severe aquifer depletion and demanded immediate cessation of all water usage. This was war. I hired Dr. Maria Gutierrez from UC Davis, the woman who'd exposed Nestlé's water theft in California. What she discovered didn't just clear my name, it buried Vivian's. Ridgemont Estates destroyed 14 acres of protected wetlands, Dr. Gutierrez announced at the packed county meeting, her projector showing aerial photos that made people gasp. Their runoff is poisoning Salmon Creek with chemicals that'll take decades to clean. Mr. Thorne's farm? It's the only natural filter preventing a federal environmental disaster. The room smelled like fear, and Vivian's nervously applied perfume. Furthermore, Gutierrez continued, that vanity fountain uses more water daily than Thorne Farm uses monthly. And this endangered Bakersfield cactus? She clicked to the next slide. It only survives on Thorn property. That makes his farm a federal protected habitat. Legal nugget number 2. Lying on environmental documents is a federal crime punishable by 5 years in prison. And honey, Vivian had signed every fraudulent page. Impossible! Vivian shrieked, her Botox preventing her forehead from matching her panic. We had clearance! From Dr. Fitzgerald? I stood slowly. The man whose degree came from a Panama City diploma mill that Google says is now a taco shop. Fitzgerald slunk out while Vivian sputtered. The county supervisors suddenly found their phones fascinating. But after the meeting, in my truck, I found an unmarked envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside, printed HOA emails that made my blood freeze. Operation Clearview wasn't about noise, wasn't about water. They were building a private airport for Ridgemont's tech millionaires. Rex had investors lined up. Construction permits already filed. Environmental clearances all forged. The first phase? Bulldoze my farm for the runway. The kicker? The emails showed they'd already started construction. Past tense. As in, they'd already built something on my land while I was fighting their fake violations. My hands shook reading the timestamp. Runway foundation completion. July 4th, 3 a.m. July 4th was tomorrow. They were coming for my farm. Tonight, I spent July 3rd in San Francisco helping my daughter Sarah move into her residency apartment. Vivian had waited 6 months for this exact opportunity. At 3:07 a.m. on Independence Day, the irony wasn't lost on me. My security cameras captured the assault. 6 bulldozers plus off-duty sheriff's deputies, headlights off, crushing through my fence like Vikings raiding a monastery. By sunrise, they'd poured a 500-foot runway straight through my heritage corn, straight through Margaret's sanctuary. Tommy's call came at 5:12 a.m., his voice cracking like it hadn't since Fallujah. Boss. They got Margaret's garden. Everything. I drove home doing 95. My knuckles white on the wheel, speedometer needle buried. Praying for cops to pull me over just so I could scream at someone with a badge. The destruction was personal. They hadn't just built through my land. They'd specifically pulverized Margaret's memorial. Every butterfly bush she'd planted during chemo, shredded. The bench where I'd proposed in 1994, now under 12 tons of concrete. 6 acres of corn my great-grandfather's hands had first seeded, murdered. My knees hit the dirt. The concrete was still warm, still curing, still stealing my wife's last physical presence from Earth. Sheriff Morrison stood there, checking his phone. Civil matter, Garrett. They built on my land. HOA shows permits. He flashed paperwork, not meeting my eyes. You supposedly signed it over. That's when I saw it. A $50,000 Rolex on Morrison's wrist. Yesterday, he'd worn a Timex. Nice watch, Sheriff. He covered it, flushing. Take it up with the courts. My federal phone buzzed. Jake from FAA Operations. Garrett, holy shit. Someone just filed for a private airstrip. Using your farm's coordinates, I accessed our database. Ridgemont Executive Airport, built 2.3 miles from Brennan Air Force Base, intersecting life flight helicopter routes, dead center in Class B restricted airspace. Airspace that required my personal signature to modify, they'd forged it. Spelled my name Garrett with one T. Marcus rolled up in his wheelchair, holding his military laptop. Boss, I got everything. 4K video, 8 angles. Even got Morrison taking an envelope from Rex at 2:45 a.m. Legal nugget 3. The Patriot Act reclassified unauthorized airfield construction in military airspace. It's no longer just illegal. It's classified as potential terrorism infrastructure. 25 to life. Boss? Tommy asked, watching concrete trucks returning for another pour. We stopping them? No. I smiled through tears. Every gallon of concrete is another year in federal prison. Let them pour their own tomb. I spent July 3rd in San Francisco helping my daughter Sarah move into her residency apartment. Vivian had waited 6 months for this exact opportunity. At 3:07 a.m. on Independence Day, the irony wasn't lost on me. My security cameras captured the assault. 6 bulldozers plus off-duty sheriff's deputies, headlights off, crushing through my fence like Vikings raiding a monastery. By sunrise, they'd poured a 500-foot runway straight through my heritage corn, straight through Margaret's sanctuary. Tommy's call came at 5:12 a.m., his voice cracking like it hadn't since Fallujah. "Boss, they got Margaret's garden. Everything." I drove home doing 95. My knuckles white on the wheel, speedometer needle buried, praying for cops to pull me over just so I could scream at someone with a badge. The destruction was personal. They hadn't just built through my land. They'd specifically pulverized Margaret's memorial. Every butterfly bush she'd planted during chemo, shredded. The bench where I'd proposed in 1994, now under 12 tons of concrete. 6 acres of corn my great-grandfather's hands had first seeded, murdered. My knees hit the dirt. The concrete was still warm, still curing, still stealing my wife's last physical presence from Earth. Sheriff Morrison stood there, checking his phone. "Civil matter, Garrett. They built on my land. HOA shows permits." He flashed paperwork, not meeting my eyes. "You supposedly signed it over." That's when I saw it, a $50,000 Rolex on Morrison's wrist. Yesterday, he'd worn a Timex. "Nice watch, Sheriff." He covered it, flushing. "Take it up with the courts." My federal phone buzzed. Jake from FAA Operations. "Garrett, holy shit. Someone just filed for a private airstrip. Using your farm's coordinates, I accessed our database. Ridgemont Executive Airport, built 2.3 miles from Brennan Air Force Base, intersecting life flight helicopter routes, dead center in Class B restricted airspace. Airspace that required my personal signature to modify, they'd forged it. Spelled my name Garrett with one T Marcus rolled up in his wheelchair, holding his military laptop. "Boss, I got everything. 4K video, 8 angles. Even got Morrison taking an envelope from Rex at 2:45 a.m. Legal Nugget 3, the Patriot Act reclassified unauthorized airfield construction in military airspace. It's no longer just illegal. It's classified as potential terrorism infrastructure. 25 to life. Boss?" Tommy asked, watching concrete trucks returning for another pour. "We stopping them?" "No," I smiled through tears. "Every gallon of concrete is another year in federal prison. Let them pour their own tomb." That night, I logged into the federal database with my deputy director credentials, the kind that make NSA jealous. What I found made me laugh so hard Margaret's photo fell off my desk. Rex Blackwood. That pompous bastard had a secret. In 2019, he'd built an illegal airstrip in Nevada. A medical helicopter carrying 2 dying children nearly collided with his buddy's Gulfstream. The kid survived by 6 feet and 1 pilot's reflexes. Rex, lifetime aviation ban. Federal no-fly list. Forbidden from owning, operating, or developing anything that flies forever. His HOA board? Never knew. His wife? Clueless. His investors? Still writing checks. But the real atomic bomb was in the financial documents. Ridgemont's board had borrowed $8 million using something called supplemental assessment. Bonds, here's your legal nugget 4. These bonds don't need homeowner permission. They use your house as collateral automatically. When this airport fails, 450 families owe $17,777 each, due in 30 days. Can't pay? Foreclosure? Their insurance? Specifically excluded aviation infrastructure because Rex never mentioned his federal ban. I actually stopped breathing when I found the investor list. Michael Dutton, Senator Crenshaw's brother-in-law, under FBI surveillance for washing cartel money through regional airports. He'd already pre-sold hangar space to 3 companies the DEA was actively tracking. The laptop screen blurred. My hands shook, not from fear, from possibility. As FAA Deputy Director, I could kill this instantly. 1 call. Federal marshals would arrive in 20 minutes. Clean, efficient, over. But they'd destroyed Margaret's garden, made Marcus feel worthless, corrupted Morrison, terrorized neighbors. They deserved something special. I opened my encrypted phone and dialed Victoria Chen, the Wall Street Journal reporter who'd destroyed Theranos. "Victoria? Garrett Thorne, FAA. Clear your Pulitzer shelf. I've got Watergate with planes." Her pause lasted exactly 1 heartbeat. "Recording now." "Good, because in 72 hours, we're destroying an entire HOA on live television." The next 48 hours, I orchestrated destruction like Beethoven conducting his 9th. If Beethoven had federal authorization and a revenge list. First, the alliance. Maria Esperanza filed a discrimination lawsuit with receipts. Ridgemont had forced out 3 Hispanic farms, 1 black-owned ranch, always finding violations that white properties mysteriously avoided. My 6 veterans, led by Marcus in his wheelchair, organized Operation Garden Justice. The Pilots Association submitted a safety report that actually used the phrase, guaranteed mid-air collision within 6 months. Victoria Chen arrived from D.C. with 2 cameramen and a Pulitzer grin. Garrett, this isn't just HOA corruption. This is Watergate meets Enron meets United Airlines beating that doctor. The FBI set up in my barn 12 agents, 17 computers, enough surveillance equipment to spy on God. The IRS criminal unit took over my garage, their forensic accountants actually giggling over Rex's money laundering. He used QuickBooks, one laughed, for cartel money. QuickBooks! The place smelled like federal coffee and righteous fury. Here's Legal Nugget 5, the kill shot. RICO isn't just for mob bosses anymore. Any organization committing pattern crimes becomes a corrupt enterprise. Every board member, every participant loses legal protection. Their personal assets, houses, cars, college funds, all become fair game for seizure. English translation? Tommy asked. They're about to be poorer than church mice on food stamps, Maria explained. My strategy was surgical. Let them commit. Every dollar spent deepened their grave. Current total, $7.2 million and climbing. Document everything. Marcus had installed cameras everywhere. We even caught Rex bribing the fire marshal in 4K. Time. The explosion. Their grand opening was Friday. 500 guests, including the mayor, Congress members, and, this was beautiful, 3 federal judges who didn't know they were attending a crime scene. Why wait? My daughter Emily asked, watching agents catalog evidence. I showed her the HOA's gold-embossed invitation, celebrating Ridgemont's private aviation future. Because, I said, they're about to ribbon-cut their own federal crime scene on live television. With senators watching, Victoria's photographer snapped me standing in Margaret's destroyed garden, my federal badge catching sunset light, concrete runway behind me like a scar. Your headline? I asked. Victoria typed on her phone, Federal Aviation Director sting operation. How one HOA accidentally declared war on the United States government. Tommy read it and whistled. Boss, they're going to need therapy after Friday. Good, I said, touching Margaret's last surviving butterfly bush. So did I. Wednesday morning, Vivian unleashed her doomsday protocol. She hired Dale Kruger, a private investigator whose Ford F-350 had more tactical gear than a SWAT van. His business card actually said, Specialist in Permanent Solutions. Dale's mission, destroy me by any means necessary. At 2:47 a.m. Thursday, our cameras caught Dale sprinkling white powder in my equipment shed like a coked-up Tinkerbell. His tactical vest, night vision goggles, and the bag labeled Evidence in Sharpie. It was almost adorable how hard he was trying. Plot twist that M. Night Shyamalan would steal. Dale was retired DEA. He'd recognized my name, called Washington, and discovered the federal operation. The meth was Betty Crocker's finest baking soda. Ms. Blackwood paid me $50,000 to plant this, Dale said, handing me USB drives of their recorded conversations. But I don't destroy federal directors. I'm tactical, not stupid. The barn smelled like desperation and Vivian's cheap perfume from her earlier inspection. Meanwhile, Rex was dissolving faster than cotton candy in rain. Thursday afternoon, he slid a briefcase with $200,000 across Supervisor Dalton's desk. Make Thorne's property records disappear. Dalton pocketed the cash, smiled, then lifted his shirt to show the FBI wire he'd worn since Tuesday. Thank you for the evidence, Mr. Blackwood. The serial numbers on these bills will look great in court. But Thursday night, that's when Vivian achieved peak delusion. Emergency board meeting, 11 p.m. She stood at the podium, mascara streaking like black tears, hands shaking so hard her Xanax rattled in her purse. We're passing retroactive approval for the runway. If we legalize it now, we're protected. That's like shooting someone then making murder legal afterward. Law doesn't work that way, sweetheart. Garrett Thorne is deep state, she shrieked. This is about freedom. You stole his land, shouted a homeowner. For America! Sometimes patriots must. You're billing us $18,000 each. The room erupted. 450 families suddenly understood they were financing Vivian's crimes. Legal nugget 6. Threatening homeowners with fraudulent assessments during federal investigation equals witness tampering. Mandatory 10 years, no parole. By midnight, Rex was fleeing to Mexico in a Cessna, ironic considering his ban. Vivian? She set her shredder on fire, trying to destroy evidence, then threw burning documents out her window like confetti at Satan's parade. The grand opening started in 10 hours. Friday, July 7th, 10 a.m. The grand opening of Ridgemont Executive Airport, about to become the most beautiful disaster ever broadcast on live television. 500 guests in designer clothes stood under a $50,000 tent on my stolen land. The mayor sweating through his suit, 3 Congress members checking phones nervously, 2 federal judges who'd learned they were attending a crime scene. Channel 7, 9, and 11 broadcasting live. The champagne alone cost more than most people's cars. Vivian took the podium in virgin white. The irony physically hurt. Her smile pulled tighter than guitar strings. Behind her, that obscene gold ribbon stretched across the runway that entombed Margaret's garden. Today, Ridgemont Estates revolutionizes luxury aviation. That's when the tent flaps exploded open. I walked through like Moses parting the Red Sea, except my sea was federal agents. 15 FBI, 12 FAA enforcement, 6 IRS criminal. The motorcade behind us looked like we were arresting the president. The high school band's tubas actually made that comedy wah-wah-wah-ha sound. Ms. Blackwood. I took the microphone, my federal badge blinding in the sun. Garrett Thorne, Deputy Director, Federal Aviation Administration. The farmer whose wife's memorial you demolished. The champagne flute slipped from her hand, shattering like her future. This runway? I clicked my remote. The promotional screen showed everything. Dale planting drugs, Rex bribing officials, the 3 a.m. destruction, Morrison counting his blood money. Built on stolen land, in military airspace, 3 miles from medical helicopters, with forged federal signatures. The crowd gasped at each revelation like a tennis match of horror. Final tally, 247 federal violations, $73.2 million in fines, 25 to life for terrorism charges. Terrorism? Vivian shrieked. Building illegal runways in military airspace after 9/11? Yes, domestic terrorism. You played yourself, Vivian. The FBI agent surrounded her. Vivian Blackwood, you're under arrest for racketeering, fraud, forgery, bribery, witness tampering, conspiracy. This is revenge! She screamed as the cuffs clicked. I leaned into every camera, every phone recording, and delivered the line I'd practiced in my destroyed garden. No, Vivian. Revenge would be bulldozing your house at 3 a.m., destroying your dead spouse's memorial, stealing your heritage. This? I gestured to the army of federal agents arresting her entire board. This is what happens when you declare war on the United States government. And lose. The crowd exploded. Standing ovation. Someone screamed, "Holy shit, that's the farmer!" Morrison tried running, tackled before his Porsche, bought Thursday with Rex's bribe. Best part? Rex, streaming from Cabo, typed in the comments, "Garrett, I'll testify against everyone. Welcome home." Rex. 6 months later, Ridgemont Estates is free. Vivian got 8 years federal. Extended to 12 after attacking her cellmate for inadequate toilet cleaning. Rex, extradited from Cabo, sobbing on live TV, now serving 12 years teaching literacy to inmates, Karma's comedian. The board members got 2 to 4. Morrison, 7 years crying at sentencing about losing his Porsche. The HOA dissolved in 43 seconds, fastest unanimous vote in California history. That obscene runway? We transformed it into Northern California's largest community solar farm. 450 panels generating clean energy where concrete once poisoned earth. Annual revenue, $50,000. Every cent funding the Margaret Thorne Memorial Scholarship. First recipient, Maria Martinez, the wheelchair veteran's daughter, now studying sustainable agriculture at UC Davis. The murdered cornfield? Resurrected stronger. Concrete dust became accidental fertilizer. The butterfly garden exploded with life. 10,000 monarchs returned last month, dancing over milkweed like Margaret's spirit, orchestrating nature's middle finger to Vivian. My farm employs 14 veterans now. We supply 37 restaurants. That heirloom corn Vivian tried to destroy won the California State Fair Grand Champion. The trophy sits exactly where her narcissistic fountain once stood. Victoria Chen's story hit 73 million views, won the Pulitzer, spawned a Netflix documentary. My congressional testimony created the federal HOA Accountability Act. Board members now face personal criminal liability. Media calls it Vivian's Law. Her legacy, protecting Americans from herself. Last week, 9-year-old Emma Chen sold lemonade at my farm. No permit needed, completely legal. Right to Farm protects lemonade stands too. Take that, Vivian. This morning on Margaret's rebuilt bench, sunrise turned solar panels into golden mirrors. Coffee steam mixed with diesel exhaust and the sound of good people doing honest work. Paradise rebuilt. My federal phone buzzed. Another criminal HOA, another investigation. I smiled, forwarding to the team. Your turn. Drop your HOA horror story below. The Anti-HOA channel is collecting evidence for Congress. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because next week we're exposing the HOA that foreclosed on a Purple Heart recipient over a flagpole. Justice is coming.